Hello, welcome back to the Cubase Fundamentals course. We're in the process of writing our song, Project 1, and learning as much about Cubase as we can as we go. If you're enjoying this video series and you'd like to help support the channel, check out the Patreon link below, or there's a YouTube channel membership scheme. Let's have a look at send effects. So in the last episode, everything that we did was insert effects. They get in the way of the audio signal. The signal has to pass through them. It's inserted into the signal path. Now, there are no fundamental rules about what has to be an insert effect and what has to be a send effect, but the most common two effects that you'll find as sends are delay and reverb. So I'm going to throw this delay effect away. Now, while I was setting up for the episode, I've created a preset called Project 1, so that we're going to load this preset back in onto the send effects side when we're ready, and we can get rid of that. So we no longer have any delay on this guitar track. What we're going to do is head into the Add Track button, and we're going to create an effect track. Now, effect tracks and group tracks are basically identical. They're both auxiliary buses. In other words, there's something that data gets routed into and something happens to it, and then on it goes. Neither of these things typically store data themselves in terms of audio information, MIDI or recorded live audio. They're routing tracks. And the reason why Cubase has delineated between group tracks and effects tracks is partly aesthetic. We get to colour them differently. We get to have different symbols to denote their different functions. And we get different options when we're creating the tracks. So for instance here, I'm going to get the option to assign an effects unit to this track when I'm creating it. You can't do that with groups. But fundamentally, they are the same thing. So try not to get too hung up on why we've got these different things. It's more of an aesthetic decision than a technical one. So we're going to add an effect to this track as we create it. Now, it's defaulted to mono delay because I was just practicing earlier, but essentially it could be absolutely anything. Whatever you last added to an FX track, it's going to come up by default here. And we're going to create it as stereo. Even though this is a mono delay, I create all of my group and effects tracks as stereo 100% of the time. It never gets me in trouble. Some effects actually don't work properly on mono tracks, so I just avoid the entire subject. The audio output, I'm going to be sending this to the guitar master because this delay is going to be dedicated to the guitars. I never have send effects that span multiple different instrument types. If I later need a delay sound for drums, I'll create a drum delay send, and don't mix those two things. And the advantage of that is that I can now route my delay track directly to my guitar master. And then I'm going to call it guitar delay, and I'm going to say add track. So here it is. We've created our effects track. It's orange, which is my color for effects tracks, and our effect has automatically popped up because I left that preference set. The open effect after loading it option is still set. Now I can load preset, and these are all of my delay settings that we had previously. Now if I solo guitar chord 1, you'll see that the guitar delay that we've just created is muted, and if I press play, it's still dry. So we need to hook these two tracks up together. The way that we do that is get back into our channel settings box. Let's move this over there. And now we're going to add a send effect. You can have up to 8 of them. If we click our little drop down button, we now have an option to send this information, to send this audio data to the guitar delay track. Now, having selected it, can you see that it's grayed out by default? So we need to activate the send, and that's the little power button, activate or deactivate send, turn it on. The final thing that I need to do is unmute the track and press play. And there's our delay back. So what we've done here is we've created a second completely independent audio stream. The original stream, the original signal path is still going through this left-hand strip. The audio comes in, goes through the compressor, goes through the chorus, goes to the Guitar Master group bus. But in addition to that, we've now created a second stream of audio that's being fed into this guitar delay. So now there are two audio feeds, one dry, one with delay, both being sent into the group track. If I turn the output level of this delay send all the way down to -infinity, it's dry again. So we get to control the amount of signal that gets sent to that delay unit. Now when you have an effects unit on a send bus like this, you set the mix level of the effects unit to 100%. So here we have our mix at 18.5%. I'm going to make that fully wet because we control the amount of signal going to this thing via our send amount. If we didn't have this value set to 100%, basically some of it is staying dry. Well, that's not what we want. We want the send to be completely effect based, and we can control the balance of our dry signal against our wet signal with the amount of audio that we send to that track. So always set your send effects to 100% wet. Now let's get the track going again and figure out how much delay we want to hear. That's pretty good. So can you see I've got a -10 dB output level here, but we're getting the right amount of delay because originally we had so little of the effect in use. You know, it was only set to about 18.5%. Now here's the glorious thing about send effects. Let's turn all that down and head over to the second track, the guitar arpeggio track. This also has a delay on it, and I'm going to throw it away. Now we've already done all the hard work. At this point, all we have to do is generate a new send for this sound to our guitar delay and season to taste. So because we can set the output levels of each of our guitar tracks, how much signal is being fed into the delay, we control the mix from here, not from the delay unit itself. Now, having engaged this send, if I deactivate all of the solo states and solo guitar chord 1 again, now the guitar delay is engaged as well. Cubase knows that because we've got some signal being sent to the delay, it needs to be unmuted as well. Do it again, and this time I'll solo the guitar arpeggio track, and again the delay is part of the signal path. Let's just head back into our preferences for a moment. Have a look at this value here, default send level set to 0 dB. So this is why when we created that FX track, this was the value it's set to. You can set that to any of those options. In the send itself, we have this funny little symbol, looks a bit like a radar dish. It says pre or post fader. If I click that button, we're going to turn from orange to blue. What's happened there is that we've just specified that this signal, this send, is now output before the fader. So it doesn't matter if I turn the fader of this track all the way down, you're still going to hear this guitar. Let's solo it. Turn the track on. Now I'm going to turn the track all the way down. What you're hearing there is just the delay. You're not hearing any original signal anymore, as opposed to post fader, in other words orange. Now when I click play, you won't hear anything at all, because the effect of the fader has been to reduce the volume of the guitar output to 0, and so this signal basically contains nothing anymore. There's nothing being sent to the delay unit. Now, it's much the most common to have this version, the post fader send. In other words, if you turn the track down, you want an equivalent amount less signal being sent to your delay. Next thing for us to look at is our panning options. So down at the bottom of the send screen, you can click the panning tab. So here we've got independent control of the balance of the delay send. So it's not the raw, it's not the dry signal, it's only the send signal that we're controlling with the panner here. So finally, I've got an opportunity to fix this egregious error I made in the previous episode where I basically panned the wrong track. I panned my sub instead of the guitar chord track. And now you can see as I move the balance panner on the guitar chord 1 track, it's adjusting the send as well. That's because panners are linked. We have a look in our preferences. There's an activate link panners for new tracks option. So every time we create a new track, this option is going to be activated. Ordinarily, if you've panned something left, you want the send that way as well. Now this isn't actually always the case. It's quite a common thing for you to have a dry signal in the left hand side and say a reverb signal on the right hand side. So in that case, you do want to deactivate these panners. And the way that we do that is disengage that option. And now here we've got our chord track being sent to the right hand track channel, but we've got completely independent control of our panning and we can send it wherever we want. If I re-engage link panners and pick the track up, watch the send, it immediately jumps to whatever my main track is. So let's have a listen to those two guitars together now that they're panned properly. Sounds nice. Little bit of housekeeping. So I'll have my two guitar tracks together. My guitar master is perfectly happy down there. And I usually have my effects tracks at the bottom of the instrument cluster that they're in relation to. Let's have an overview of what those routings look like in our mix console. So here is our two guitar tracks. They're both feeding into guitar sub. Our guitar effects track is jumping over the sub and going directly to the guitar master. And here is where we collect all of our dry signals together and we send those into the guitar master as well. So the effects track and the dry track are being mixed together in the guitar master and then finally onto the stereo out. You could theoretically send those two to the guitar sub instead. It's completely up to you. It depends what your routing strategy is going to be and how many different layers of routing you've got as to which one you want to send those to. Unmute everything, have a quick listen of the song that we've got so far. Excellent stuff. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you did, please hit the like button. I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.